Originally, I wasn't planning on making this video, but after getting a lot of requests from people, I decided to do so. And in this video, I'm going to basically just show you how to actually use the new blocks, new everything. I'd also like to quickly announce that I'm giving away 5 game passes of your choice, and if you wish to join, all you have to do is simply subscribe, comment your username, and the game pass of your choice in the comments. I wish luck to all of you, and Happy New Year's. And yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so I want to start with the special and the awakening block because in my opinion they're like the easiest to use in the update and also one of the most useful. So it's really good to know how to actually use them and stuff, right? So you can just think of the special block as just binding a move to your R key. You can change the cooldown on the right side here. As you can see, you can change it to anything you want. You can just think of it like a normal move. Conditions, properties, everything works for it. Awakening blocks, this is where it gets a bit more complicated because it has like a few gimmicks and stuff, right? Starting with the duration over here. This just changes the duration of your awakening. The average duration for an awakening is 60 seconds for pretty much every character in the game, except a few. You can make this 0 if you want to have like a base only character where when you press G, it just doesn't move and then that's it. Or you can make it last an amount. You can make it last a really long time, like this, something like this, to make it basically infinite. But typing infinite doesn't work for it for some reason. It just doesn't, so don't try it. But anyways, you can also change the name at the bottom here. You cannot change the color yet, but they'll probably add that feature in like the next update or maybe later down the line. Not too sure. But yeah, again, this is kind of just like a normal move. But one thing that you want to keep in mind though is that if you want to make it like a normal awakening where you need to have the bar full and then use it, you need to do has awakening bar and then 99.9 or any amount you want. You can do 50 if you want it to be poppable at 50, for example, right? And that variance, blah, blah, blah. But if you want it to be like a normal ultimate, just type this 99.9. If you do 100, it doesn't work because it just bugs for some reason. But do this and then set the duration to like anything you want and it'll be like a normal ultimate. Or you can make it so you can pop it at literally no awakening bar full, which lets you do the swappable moveset tech, which I'm going to show right now because I think it's super useful for like a lot of movesets, right? Basically, what I'm doing is I'm making it so my awakening basically lasts like infinite. It's basically forever. And it gives me 100 awakening and does whatever you want here. It could be an animation, multiple animations, moves, whatever you want, right? And then I'm setting my special to a special where it checks if I'm in awakening or I'm not. And if I'm in awakening, it like removes all my awakening and it does whatever else. And then if I'm not awakened, it doesn't move, for example. So what this allows me to do is switch between awakening and ultimate as I please, like this. And this also keeps the cooldowns. As you can see, the cooldowns do not get reset. And it is just super useful. And you can make it so if you use R while not in awakening, it doesn't move or whatever you want. You can add as many variants as you want. But yeah, it's just super useful. This also has an effect where... Okay, let me just show you. You command once, and then when I switch into ultimate, it switches to the dismantle M1s. This effect only happens on some characters. It happens on Vessel, where it switches to the dismantle M1s. On Restless Gambler, it switches to punches instead of kicks. And then on Puppet Master, it switches from the normal M1s to like the mech M1s without actually switching you to the mech. And that's about it for this swappable tech. This is definitely one of the techier things they added this update, being move speed. This just lets you speed up and down moves, and this has a lot of implications. Meaning that you can set something to 0 speed, for example, to make it only play the VFX. Or you can set it to 0 speed to make it suspend you in place or suspend you in air, for example, right? And this also works on specials as well. And this has an effect where if you speed something up a lot, sometimes it'll just skip to the part like at the end of the move without actually doing it. So as you can see, it does the rapid punches variant on Limitless if you speed it up all the way. And then for something like Maito's Head Splitter, if you speed it up to a really high number, what it's going to do is it's going to actually skip to the end of the move and do the counter without actually getting countered. And this is really cool for like some moves and stuff, right? And this has a lot of possibilities, but it has different effects for each move if you speed them up. So I'm not going to go through each one of them. Although one thing you should keep in mind is that some moves cannot be sped up or down. For example, Reversal Red cannot be sped up or down. There's a few other moves like this, but the amount of moves that can't be changed is really low, so it's alright in my opinion. But besides that, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with this. So just experiment for yourself and find out. Victim animations is actually kind of a misleading name for this because it's actually last hit animations. And how it works is it basically applies the animation to anyone you hit in this time frame. If you do anything 0 or below, it's not gonna happen. So if you're doing an animation that only is supposed to play on yourself, obviously put it to 0 or -1, which is the default anyways. But let's say you want it to play on someone that you hit, you set it to 1, and you pick an animation that looks like you're getting hit, or honestly animation, any animation from the game at all, it's up to you. But when you grab it and you hit someone, as you can see, it plays the animation on them. And if you don't hit anyone, it plays it on yourself. It's simple as that, but this expands your limits a lot with moves. It lets you make a lot of different stuff, which you're gonna see in a bit when I show how to use it. But it's actually one of the easier stuff to use in the update, in my opinion, if you know what you're doing. And if you don't, that's okay, because I'm gonna show you. I am gonna keep this part short because what you do with the connect blocks is up to you. But I am gonna show you how to exactly use it right now, so let me delete that. Alright, just spawn your connect block over here, set the signal to anything you want. Let's just do test signal here. The time doesn't matter, range up to you, but I usually keep it at infinite, right? And then we come here, and first off, you need your connect block in inputs. And then you set the signal to the same thing as the one in the move, which is test signal. And then the range, again, up to you, just do anything you want. And then output ID, I'm gonna do signal here. And then let's just connect it to sound block, for example, right? Come here. And then put the sound ID in, set the volume, and then set the signal, or the input ID to signal. And then once we use the move, as you can see, it plays the sound a single time. Now, I'm going to show you how the time thing works. Let's set this to 0.05, and then set this to looped. And now you're going to see that when I take the move and use it again, it cuts off. But if I set the time to something longer, like 2 seconds, as you can see, it plays the sound on loop for exactly 2 seconds. So that's how the time thing works. Just remember that you have to use a connect block first, and then you can connect it to anything in the game that you want to. And it's literally as simple as that. I'm gonna try to go over velocity and hitbox blocks like really quickly because they kind of work hand in hand, right? And the way they work, or the way you use them, is kind of similar, but the way they function is different. I'm gonna explain why right now. So basically, they both use the XYZ system, which you probably already know what it is, but if you don't know which one is which is completely fine, I'm gonna explain it right now. The Z is basically the plane that you're facing. So if you go higher in Z, it's gonna make it so you go forward. But if you go negative, for example, in Z, you're gonna go backwards with it, right? Y, this is the height function. If you go up with the number, if you go higher, it's gonna make you go literally higher. It's simple as that. And then if you go negative, you're gonna go down, just downwards. It's simple as that. And then X, this is the horizontal plane. If you go higher here, you're gonna go to the right, and if you go negative, you're gonna go basically just to the left. And you can leave these as 0, which is completely fine. For now, let's just set them to 50 for Z and then 10 for Y, right? And then time, there has to be a number here. You cannot go 0 or below. It has to be a number that's like above 0, right? So let's just do 1, for example, and then fade. This makes it so instead of coming to a stop instantly, you basically like slowly fade down to normal, right? Let's turn it on for now. Track. This makes it so you can change the direction whilst moving, but if you have it off, once you start moving, you cannot change the direction with your camera no matter what. So again, for now, let's turn this on. If you're using the velocity on someone else, you'll usually want to turn this off so that once they get flung, they can't change the direction of it manually, right? But since we're going to use it on myself for now, let's just turn it on. And then last tip, this is the same thing as animations that I showed earlier. Checks if you've hit anyone in the last second and then applies it on them if you have. If you don't want it to apply on anyone else, you set it to 0 or below and it'll work. And then ragdoll, this is how long the ragdoll duration is. So if you set it to 0, it's just going to not ragdoll at all. True ragdoll, this makes it so they cannot evasive out of it. Again, simple as that. Now let me just show you. As you can see, it fades out. And it tracks so I can change the direction as I'm going. Then if I hit someone, it's going to apply it on them instead. As you can see, based on my camera's direction. Velocity blocks are quite simple. but the way you use them is a little different with hit cancels and stuff, and I'm going to explain that in a bit. But for now, let's go on to hitbox blocks, right? The way these work, or the way you use them, like I said, is again kind of simple and kind of like close to the way you use velocity blocks. They use the XYZ functions again, but this time, the first three over here basically decide where the hitbox is located. So in this case, the default is always Z equals 4, which means that the hitbox starts 4 studs in front of you, and then is just placed there. But if you change the values, you can change where the hitbox is placed. Like if you make these all 0, the hitbox is placed basically in your torso, or like in your center of your avatar, right? Let's just leave it at 5, for example. And then the size, this is again self-explanatory, but basically if you increase the Z size, the hitbox is going to get longer in this direction. If you increase the Y feature, it's going to get longer like this. And if you increase the X function, it's going to basically get wider in front of you, right? Stun, this is how long the stun is for. Let's just set it to 2 for now. Damage, you can set this to anything. Beware that this does get affected by the damage multiplier, which actually lets you do a lot of cool stuff, which I'm going to show in a bit. Attack type, these seem to be kind of bugged right now, but I'll probably put it on screen for each of them. And blockable decides whether the move is blockable or not. 360 block makes it so they can block it from behind. Basically, if you turn it off, they can't. If you turn it on, they can. Cancel enemy, if you have any kind of stun, this is the same thing as cancel enemy, but if you don't have any stun and you turn this on, it makes it so that it cancels their actions. Simple as that, right? Let's make this unblockable for now. And the properties, I was going to explain the damage thing, right? So let's say in the timeline, you also have a move like Hollow Purple, which does a lot of damage, but you want it to do no damage, while the hitbox block instead does all the damage. What you can do is you can set the properties damage multiplier to something super low, so 0.01, right? This means 1 divided by 100, so the Hollow Purple does 100th of the damage that it would normally do. So what you can do is, if you want the hitbox block to do 5 damage, for example, you can multiply this by 100, which means that now it does 5 damage. Let me just show you. So as you can see, the Hollow Purple didn't hit, but if it did hit, it would do around 0.7 damage, which is super low. And that basically lets you bypass these moves and make them do no damage, and instead make your hitbox blocks do all the damage. So just keep that in mind while you use them. There isn't much else to the hitbox blocks, but like I said, they go hand in hand with velocity blocks, and I'm going to explain it right now. Branches are the main bread and butter of this update, and you obviously want to start off by actually making the branches first. So let's name this 2, and then this 3. And then there's actually 2 ways to branch into different moves. The first one being the branch block. This is only ever useful for making variants, such as air variants or, I don't know, domain variants. And you can actually mix and match these variants, like conditions as well, right? Because each branch can have separate conditions, but beware that the properties are always the same. They cannot be changed across the branches. Keep that in mind. So now let's make an air variant and a ground variant for the move, right? This name is 2 and this name is 3. Let's make the 2 the air variant, which means false in air, and then this one the ground variant, meaning in air true. And now let's, for the air variant, let's make it curse strikes, and then for the ground variant, let's make it crushing blow, right? Now it's literally just gonna work. Probably already knew all this, but this is where it gets a bit more complicated. Moving on to the hit cancels with the branch feature. So I think the trick to understanding these is to not think of them as hit cancels, but instead as hit branches, because they no longer cancel anything, right? The only way they cancel is if the conditions aren't fulfilled for the branch and they just cannot branch off into it, so they cancel the move. But usually these will either continue the move or they will branch off into one. So let's call them hit branches from now on, right? And basically, it just replaces the cancel feature with a branch. So normally, if you do flip on and then say 0.5 and then turn the end lag to 0 and then branch to 2, what's going to happen is that if you hit the move, it's going to continue like normal, like a normal hit cancel. But if you actually miss the move, if you don't hit anyone in this time frame, it'll normally cancel the move, right? But because it's a hit branch, it's going to just branch into this branch over here. So they're literally just hit cancels, but instead of canceling, they branch off into other moves. It's simple as that. But this opens up ways for a lot of things. Like, for example, making it so it only plays the hit sound if you actually hit the person. which I'm going to show how to do that like in a bit right now. All right. So for now, just keep all this in mind and let's move on. This is the last feature that they added in this update that I want to show you guys before I move on to actually showing you how to make moves with these new stuffs. This is the use when obtained feature that they added in properties, and what it does, it just makes it use a move when you get the move. And there's a few things you can do with this. There's a lot of things you can do with this, but the most common use of this is making spawn animations with the durability condition. Just set it to 1 and then do a move or animations, anything that you want to do. For example, I'm going to do Malraga's Earthquake with a lot of speed. And as you can see, when I get the move, it just uses it. Like I said, you can do this for basically spawn animations, cutscenes. You can do this for a lot of things, but I'm not going to show that in this video most likely because it's a bit more complicated and you have a lot more freedom with it. But I am going to show you how to actually make moves and use them with the new blocks and the stuff they added right now. So let's move on to that. I'm not going to make a move from scratch, but I am going to show you a move that I made that uses pretty much everything they added in this update except for the connect block. So let me just show you the move first off. As you can see, if it does not land, it does not play the point sound. And if it does... Pathetic. The move does look very simple, but as you can see, it has hit animations, or victim animations, as some people call it. And the second punch also has no point sound if it misses, just like the first one. And then if you hit the second punch, you cannot turn your camera during the move. It basically like locks the rotation of your camera. Pathetic. That's when the move always lands. And then that actually uses velocity blocks. So first thing I want to show is that in properties, the knockback is set to nil so that the brute force at the end does no knockback. And instead I use velocity blocks to do all the knockback. But first off, I want to start with the variants. So in all of my moves from now on, I always set the default branch off like to the side for variants, because even though this move only has one variant, if I want to add any more in the future, I can, because the default is like set aside for it. So let's say, for example, I wanted to add an M1 variant, right? That also takes Awakening. I would do 0.5 and then flip off, because think of this like a hit branch. And once again, if you have flip off, it's going to cancel it if you land the move. But in this case, instead of canceling, it's going to branch. So I set the end lag to 0. Let's just make a M1 branch like this. And then let's set the conditions to has Awakening bar and then 25. And then let's just do hollow purple at high speed, right? Whatever. And then plus make it take minus 25 Awakening. So I'm going to see that if I don't land anything, it's going to play the move like normal. Pathetic. But if I don't hit anyone in the 0.5 seconds, it's going to do... if I hit someone, yeah. Yeah, but if I don't have the required Awakening, it's actually not going to do variant. So let me just give myself Infinite Awakening, and as you can see, it's an M1 variant. And like I said earlier, you can mix and match these conditions to basically just make any kind of conditions for any kind of variant that you want to do, like M1 variants, air variants, which I probably might do, because as you can see, this one has true in air, which means that the move's only doable on the ground. So I could make an air variant if I wanted to. I could make a domain variant. I could make a target variant, whatever. You get the gist of it. Now, moving on to how I actually made the move, which is the actual important part. So I used a velocity block here, so to make it so that basically I cannot move during the part of it, because I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't use a move until the second part of the move. Rapid punches here. Until then, I literally just did not use a move. I only used hitbox blocks and velocity blocks, which is why I applied like almost 0 velocity to myself so that I cannot move during the move, right? And I set the time to, as you can see, this is 0.5 and then 0.01, and then add these up. It's just basically 0.71, right? So for 0.71 seconds, I gave myself almost 0 velocity, just enough so that my character moves a little bit, so that I can't move myself manually during the move. And I set the last hit to basically something below 0, so it only applies to me. And I use track so that I can turn my camera during the move. And then what I did was I set the hitbox right here for the actual first hit. I set the stun, I set the damage according to the properties, which is 0.3 damage multiplier, which means that this first hit actually does around like 5 or like 4.5 damage. And it's blockable, it cancels, it's not 360 blockable. Stuns for this much. This is the size of the hitbox and the location of it. As you can see, the location is the default one, but the size I did play with a little bit. Again, keep in mind that the hitbox blocks cannot hit ragdoll people. They can only hit people who are up. Keep that in mind. And here I played basically just a whiff sound, like a air sound, air noise. And I set a hit cancel here for this hitbox block, and I made it flip on. So basically what it's doing here is that if I land the move, it's continuing the move. But if I miss, it's going on to the miss branch where it cancels the move. It plays like a end lag animation, and it gives me like 0.5 seconds of end lag. And then I use the hit cancel here because normal cancels do not work. They basically like bug you a little bit. So you have to use a hit cancel with 0 and flip on when you use basically when you branch off into another branch, right? But in the normal branch, you can just cancel normally like this. Now getting back to it, I just made it so that if I miss the move, it goes into the branch, which is a miss one. If I land the move, it continues like normal, and it plays the hit sound right here. And then it plays the last hit animation here, as you can see, with a speed of 0.2. This is the bleed out hit animation, and it plays it on the dummy, like I said earlier. And then I applied a velocity for a short amount of time to the dummy over here to basically make it float up for a second. And then after 0.05 seconds, I applied the velocity to the dummy once again to move it forward while keeping in the air with this Y velocity here. And the reason why I did this is, let me just show you right now, to make it so that it hits basically people that die. Simple as that.
Pathetic.
So as you can see, what it's doing there is that it's floating the dummy up a little bit so that the rapid punches, which is the second hit here, can actually hit the dummy even if it dies. So what I do here is I make it float up a little bit with this Y velocity, and then I instantly make it go forward because I literally just hit the dummy, obviously. So it goes 50 sluts per second forward for around half a second, and it floats up because if I set this to 0, what it's going to do is it's going to like basically fall down instead of floating up in the air. And I make it fade. I keep track off because, like I said, this is applied to the dummy and not myself, so I keep track off. And I use the last hit feature, and I don't ragdoll the dummy. And then right after that, I use the run animation on myself, and then a velocity at the same time to apply to myself, as you can see, to basically just make me run forward along with the dummy. And then these are footstep sounds. And then this is a wind-up sound for the rapid punches. And then I actually play the hit animation, or like the animation of me hitting the dummy once again for the second hit, right as I wind up the rapid punches. And I apply this velocity to myself to... Oh, I meant I apply this velocity to the dummy. My apologies, but this is to make it float down as I'm hitting the rapid punches. And it slowly floats down to the ground because this is a really low number. So it's like super slow, right? And then for this amount of time, it floats down. And then right around here, this is where rapid punches hits. If you didn't know, rapid punches at 1 speed hits at exactly 0.51 seconds. So I wait 0.52 after it. I play a whiff sound. I put a hit cancel to make sure that if I do land the move, it continues. But if I miss it, it actually branches off into miss 2. Which again here just stuns me for a little bit and then just cancels the move. Simple as that. And then we go back here. And if I do land the move, it continues like normal. This time applying velocity to myself. And this is basically to make me... This is to cancel out the velocity of the rapid punches. That's why I use this here. Because when you use rapid punches, it moves you forward a little bit. And I simply just wanted to cancel that. And I use this to do it. And yeah. Then I use the last hit victim animation, whatever thing on the dummy. For the rapid punches, which is this one. it basically like matches perfectly because as you can see, the punch animation is climax jump and then the hit is climax jump hit. So it matches perfectly. And then I made it so it plays the hit sound like the actual punch sound because this is after the hit cancel, meaning that if I do miss the move, it's going to branch off into miss 2 and not play the hit sound. It's going to only play the whiff sound instead. And then we come back here, and after that, it plays the punch sound, like I said, and then it makes it so I cannot move my camera using a rush at 0 speed. This basically locks your camera or like your character to 1 rotation until you cancel it. And then I play this sound here, which plays the voice line from June, the pathetic one. And then after a bit, it's canceled. And then I use the camera thing again. The reason I cancel this is to cancel the rapid punches that was used here, which actually is the dummy. And then a little bit after hits, obviously it's canceled by this justice served. And then I use a rush with 0 speed here. And I just realized, by the way, I could just remove this justice served and only use a cancel last rush like this. Either way, going back to what I was saying. As soon as I cancel the rapid punches, I use a hitbox block to stun the dummy because the stun of rapid punches is not long enough to actually hit this brute force over here. So what I do is I use a hitbox block to stun the dummy as soon as I cancel the rapid punches so it gets stunned for longer, right? And here's the hitbox block for it. It's unblockable. Apply stun for this long so that the brute force can hit. And then I start playing this, which is like the kick at the last part. And then as soon as it hits, I play a brute force with basically like max speed, so it comes out instantly. And I play this as like the end lag part of it. And I play the hit sound. And then after a little bit, as soon as it hits, basically, I play the velocity block on the dummy to basically fling it forward. And I use true ragdoll for 1.2 seconds. And use the last hit here, which is 1.5 seconds. And then after a little bit, I use the end lag animation here. And then I cancel the scale, basically ending it. So the final product of that is just this.
Pathetic.
See, I cannot move my camera during it. In this move specifically, I tried to use basically everything that the update added to the game. I couldn't use the variants, but I probably will in a bit. I'll probably start working on an M1 variant most likely or something like that for this move. And you can consider this a sneak for the June rework as well if you want. But if you basically just try to follow and understand everything that I did here, I'm sure that you can also make moves with the new stuff that they added. I don't think it's too hard to understand once you get a grasp of it. In fact, I think it's pretty simple. It's just new, which means that you have to get used to it before you can, you know, use it properly. But I think that in around like a week or so, I think people will start getting used to it gradually, and we'll probably start seeing like more complicated moves than we are right now. I've gotten some people asking how to make time stops and stuff as well, which I've actually made one myself here. I'm not going to explain how to do this in this video because you can just search up a guide on it, but as you can see, it stuns the dummy for that long. There's a few issues with this time stop though, and that is actually bugs. The first one being that the hitbox block over here, even if you turn blockable off, the move is still blockable, so you can just block the time stop, which is the first issue. And the second issue is that if you time stop and then you, for example, ragdoll the opponent with a down slam, they can evasive, which gets rid of their stun on them. Which is kind of sad because it makes the time stop kind of like just a showcase or like a cool thing. Like in reality, it's really not that cool. It doesn't do much in game. Although, obviously, if you're making a character that has it, I would still use it. But besides that, there's nothing too special about it. So I don't think you should worry about it too much, and I think instead you should worry more about the move that I made here. Just try to understand everything here, and I think that, like I said, you can eventually slowly start learning it and, you know, make moves like I do. Thank you everybody for watching. I know I haven't dropped a video in a while except for the tutorial, and that is my fault. I can't really lie and say that I'm going to stay consistent because obviously we all have stuff going on in our lives, so I don't know. I can't make any promises, but I will continue working on the June rework, and after that I might make any character. I have no idea for now, but yeah. I wish all of you good luck. I wish you all happy New Year's, happy Christmas, because I couldn't properly. And I hope you guys have a great day. And goodbye.